Hello everyone, welcome back to the Stay Home Garden videos. Today I'm actually going to talk about pollinators, who they are, why they're so important, and some fun facts about them. I normally talk about fruit and vegetables, how to grow them, why they're so good for you and so much fun to grow. But today I'm going to talk about the busy workers behind the scenes, the bees, the bugs, the insects, and animals, and how they help us produce food. Of course, not every plant needs a pollinator, and not every bug is a good pollinator. But some pollinators like bugs, hummingbirds, and other animals are really important to support our food system. Pollinators help us produce food through the process called pollination. And pollination is simply moving pollen from one flower to another flower of the same type of plant or variety. This is really important because flowers are what plants use to reproduce, and many plants can only do that when pollen is moved from flower to flower of the same species or the same type of plant. Specifically, pollination happens when pollen is moved from a male part of a plant, which is called the anther, to then moving to the female part of the plant, which is called the stigma. The goal of every living organism, including plants, is to create offspring for the next generation. And one of the ways that plants produce offspring is by creating seeds. And seeds can only be produced when pollen is transferred from one flower to another. It is true that not all plants need pollinators to help them pollinate. They can self-pollinate, or they use the wind, or if the plant shakes, pollen falls from one flower to another. However, even those plants that use the wind or are self-pollinators can still be helped out and utilize pollinators like bugs. So let's talk about pollinators themselves. Who are pollinators? Are you one? The answer is, yeah, you can be. But sometimes it takes a lot of work for a human to be a pollinator. So it's best to leave pollination up to the pollinators, the bugs, the bees, the hummingbirds, and other mammals that do this naturally. A pollinator might go to a flower to eat or collect pollen for protein, or they might go to a flower to suck up some of that sweet nectar. And while pollinators are going for that protein in the pollen or the nectar, they might rub into some pollen and collect it on their body somehow. And then they fly, move, crawl, or walk over to another flower, and some of that pollen by accidentally falls off while they're in the flower, therefore cross-pollinating those flowers with the pollen. There are other things besides pollen and nectar that attract pollinators to flowers. Many pollinators like different shapes, colors, or smells that can attract specific pollinators to specific flowers. That way it gets the same pollinator going to the same type of flower, making sure their pollen falls off on the same type of flower. For example, butterflies generally like to visit flowers with bright colors, specifically red and purple, with nectar, and maybe have a narrow tube with a wide landing pad to land on. However, flies, who can be pollinators, usually like a pale, dull flower, maybe even brown or dark purple. Other pollinators are beetles, bats, birds, moths, bees, and more. Now I do want to talk about one pollinator in specific, one that people usually think of when I say pollinators. That's right, bees. Bees are a really important insect that help pollinate, therefore help us make some of our favorite foods. Bees pollinate many different types of crops, including different types of fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts, and seeds. And maybe some of these crops are even grown here in Oregon, and they may even be pollinated by Oregon native bees, which is really cool. Another cool thing about Oregon bees is that sometimes they are moved out to other states to help pollinate other states' vegetables. So our bees here in Oregon sometimes travel out of state to help produce food for the country. Bees, like all other pollinators, are critical for our food production, and they need our help sometimes. Therefore, I always encourage people to plant flowers and flowering fruits and vegetables in their gardens to help support and provide space for bees. Flowers that are typically visited by bees have lots of nectar. They're usually blue or yellow with a mix of these, and they have a sweet smell. And the flowers are usually open in the daytime, and they have a nice landing pad for the bee to land onto. And a cool thing, flowers that bees like are usually bilateral or symmetrical, therefore one side matches the other. This is the same amount of patterns or petals on one side as there is the other. So it's like a mirror image, which is pretty neat. So if you want to learn more about bees, check out our Food Hero coloring book and information online. We've got a lot of information there. And I hope you guys think about planting some flowers or flowering fruits and vegetables in your gardens to not only help out pollinators, but also help your garden be a healthier, happier place for your vegetables to grow. Have a great day.